Dear listener, hello. What a week, hey? It's been a week like no other that I can think of in all of my years in radio. The biggest radio news story of the week around the world has been Kyle and Jackie O. And here to help us dissect it from MediaWeek is their media editor, Natasha Lee. Hello, lovely.
Hello, Wade. How you going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's been a long week.
I was going to say, are you ready for something to kind of take the edge off on a Friday?
Yeah. Take the edge off. Very much so. It's and so it broke. When was it? I think Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
Tuesday, Monday, and it has been consistently nonstop since then.
Yeah, and I think interestingly, and what we'll talk about today is there's been the opinions and the speculation, and then there's been the facts. So we'll kind of cover it all. But let me just start by playing you a piece of audio, which was really how it got announced on the TV news that night.
They're used to being in the limelight, but Kyle and Jackie O have today gone to ground after an on-air falling out proved to be the kiss of death for their $200 million radio show.
Hours before Jackie O told her bosses she could no longer work with her radio partner of more than 20 years, she was spotted trying to find some calm amid the chaos.
So, a radio show is a big deal when it leads the television news. And for those outside of Australia, imagine this leading your TV news that a radio show has busted up. Now, Tash, you were the first one who texted me. Like, I got your text first. I'm calling you breaking Natasha Lee from now on because you seem to break a lot of media stories first. The text from you literally had the ASX media release and a bit of an OMG sort of emoji. When you first saw it, that first second of seeing it, can you remember what you thought?
I'll take you back to it too. I was picking up my daughter from her drama class and I looked down at my phone and I saw the ASX announcement. And I was winded. I was actually winded. I was in the chemist buying something and I looked down and I went, oh! And the woman goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, it's Kyle and Jackie. And I know this sounds performative. It's not being performative. It's an indication and it's indicative, I think, how so many people felt about the show ending because it's such a part of our lives. But when I got it and then I stopped for a second and I looked down, I thought, hang on a second, could this be fake? Have I just been sent this and it's been, dummied up? I called someone else. I messaged you. I called someone else and then it was doubly confirmed. And I ran home and got behind the computer and then it all just started trickling through. And the calls, my phone was just, on fire, people messaging. But it's the same reaction. Is it true? Is this really happening? So it was, I was really stunned by it. I was really, really shocked by it. I just didn't think it would get to that stage. Really didn't.
Yeah. I think there's the phrase I remember, I can't remember the exact wording, but it goes along the lines of, I was shocked but not surprised. So I was shocked. I was like, I can't believe that the trigger has actually been pulled. But at the same time, I kind of go, well, there's a lot to say this was leading up to it. It was on the fence if Jackie came back or not. I think the thing that surprised me the most was not that Jackie had said, I'm out. It was that Kyle was taken off. So what did you think when you saw that part of the media release?
That part didn't shock me as much as her claiming an unsafe workplace.
Right.
That really shocked me. And yes, I've listened to the audio and I've said to you as well how hard I found it listening to it again, because even though I've heard it so many times, it's really hard to listen to because there is genuine emotion when she's talking. But it just felt, I think maybe it's the heaviness of the legal wording, that this isn't just, the friendship is kind of removed and taken away. And having that, popped into it, and at least now the whole situation is under that umbrella. That's what I found so, I don't know, it just felt so cold, like so final.
Yeah, clinical, wasn't it? It was a clinical, and it has to be. Like, for those that don't know, these things, when you're reporting to the stock exchange, you can't be emotional. You can't have flowery quotes. You just have to have statements of fact. And the statements of fact were simply that She'd advised she can't work with Kyle, therefore the contract's terminated. Kyle's been suspended and has a case to answer. So that'll all play out. And, there's a lot of people speculating around what he will or won't do. And the reality is we won't know. We won't know until we actually get told what's going on. And plenty of people kind of playing inside baseball on this. But the reality is we don't know what Jackie is going to do. She's been hunkered down. We don't know what Kyle's going to do because he's the same. And he's not actually talking to the press for the first time in history, I think. So we don't know.
Carl Sandilands breaks his silence, and he basically said to the reporter, "I can't talk, mate." that drives me crazy when I see those. It's clickbait in the most sort of obscene form. We get it, like he can't talk. He hasn't broken his silence, please. And there's a lot of camping out of the houses and the following Jackie, and that's icky to me too. Just let it play out now, whatever's happening. And clearly these are two very human people who are dealing with something that's huge.
It's huge. Yeah, and it is akin to it's a relationship breakup after 2 decades.
Do you know what it felt like? And you can laugh at me if you want. This does sound overly dramatic. And I'm not prone to being overly dramatic, Wade, but it felt almost like when the Queen died.
I know what you mean.
And the reason is because it was this constant in my life. I don't remember a time when I wasn't listening to Kyle and Jackie O, where even the Hot 30, I remember calling up for prizes for Kyle and Jack on the Hot 30, and then hearing them on Today. And, I worked there when they were on Today and then at ARN. So for them not to be anymore, it's like, oh, it's a bit jarring.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring. And I think, one of the things that has been spoken about during the week is all about them. Like it's all about them and what they're going to do next. But there's a couple of missing pieces here. One is the advertisers. There are people who pay money to advertise on Sydney's #1 FM breakfast show to reach over 700,000 people a week right now, and they don't have an answer. The second pool of people, which I actually really feel sorry for, are the listeners. I mean, they have core fans that are attached to that show, and like you say, they've lived most of their lives either driving home with or waking up with Kyle and Jackie O. And particularly in Sydney, that's something that I think is the next wave of the story. Is like let's hear from listeners and see how they feel. So we're going to cover that on the Quarter Hour podcast next week. We're actually doing our first episode where we talk to real listeners of the Kyle and Jackie O show to get their reaction. But let's just quickly get into some media coverage. So across the week, the thing that's always interesting, I think, to people who are in the media is who's saying what and what they're doing. Was there anything that you saw in the trade or mainstream press that you kind of thought, this is really summing this up quite well? Or was there anything you thought, oh, okay, this is a bit speculative?
I've got to say, I think the person who covered it really well and who he always does an amazing job is Sam Buckingham-Jones at the AFR. And I've told him that I think it was just first-class coverage. Crosses his T's, dots his I's. You can trust what he's said. Yep. The speculative stuff and the stuff that's kind of rolling around like that, it can get a little bit tawdry because you've got to remember there are lots of staff there who now don't know what's going to happen with their jobs. So let's just wait until they kind of know before we speculate, what's going to happen with the staff and where are they going and is there going to be, another show? So, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I covered a story where Beau Ryan said on air that he doesn't think Jackie's going to do another radio show. But I think when we get into, again, there's a lot of staff there. And I did talk to a couple of staffers there, especially, some of the producers. And look, what they said at the time was they only were called into a meeting about 10 minutes before it was announced and they still don't know what's happening.
Right, yeah. And there's so many lives affected. We have to remember that, yes, they're performers and all the pantomime and vaudevillian nature of that radio show as it was and traded successfully for many years. But there's humans, there's people with jobs. Kyle and Jackie O are businesses in their own right. They employ people. So there's lots of ongoing effects that haven't been resolved. One thing that was curious to me watching a lot of the media coverage this week, Tash, is why do reporters camp, or photographers mostly, camp outside the houses of people? And how do they get their addresses? How does that work?
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously with tip-offs and so forth, but it's like that story I said before. Kyle breaks his silence, and then Jackie breaks her silence. You know, she went for a healing. Of course, she went for a healing session after she announced it. Of course, she went for a healing session at Newtown.
Of course.
And the only reason I know that is I recognized it. But, you know, what do you think they're going to say? They're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
And they always just say, oh, I can't talk right now, or I can't say this. And the headline is break silence. That irks me to tears. I cannot stand when they do that. But the camping outside is also just, what photo do you think you're going to get? They know you're out there. They'll go out the back entrance. They're not going to go out that way too. And what are they going to say to you? They've got lawyers there. There's so much money. Look, I get some of the time these reporters have no choice. The editor's saying to them, you've got to go out there and you've got to do it, right? But I don't know what they're trying to get from it, because, you know, do they want them to snap and that's the photo that they want? I think, you know, Kyle and Jack are incredibly savvy media people, and the people around them are incredibly savvy. Like Bruno, he's incredibly savvy. He knows the media. He's with Kyle all the time. You know, and they got a vision of him driving out of Kyle's driveway. Like,
Wow.
I know, right? You know, boss, I've got a scoop. I got Bruno driving out.
Also, like, you always end up with pictures of Uber delivery drivers. That's what I've noticed.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Poor Uber delivery drivers. Who knows? Maybe that's their 15 minutes of fame, and they message their family and they're like, "Look at me." But I find that just a bit. That's not going to change. People will click as long as that is around and the currency is there. People will always click. They'll always send them there. One thing that I did want to mention that and I will contact Steve about this, but at the bottom of his, he's just done a recent article on the Oz Today, and Steve Jackson, who does the Media Diary, who's also been doing some great coverage of this. He wrote that, and like I said, I need to double check this, so don't take my quote as gospel, but that ARN had met with MFW before the announcement.
Interesting.
Which is something that, I think I need to kick that can down the road and see what's going on there, because if that's true, then that I think adds a different angle to what may have happened behind the scenes as well. I don't know.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you know, the layers of these stories, how they normally go is there's the announcement, there's the shock, there's the headlines, there's the pundits, there's all that kind of stuff. And then what happens is what happens next. And, you know, that's kind of the questions that get asked, and no doubt that'll dominate the media coverage over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so where do you think the story goes next? What happens next week?
I think next week we do wait for them to break their silence, like properly, like have a conversation.
Like actually break their silence.
Yeah, like actually talk about what they're going to do. It would be nice to hear from ARN. It would be nice to hear from Michael Stevenson, to hear from Dave Cameron, to hear from Kerry Elstub. They're in there. They acknowledge the history of the show, because something that's really... I spoke to somebody about this as well. What's really upsetting too is that this is a show with so much history, and it means so much to so many people, and it's abruptly ended, right? There was no grieving period for the audience or for the fans. So usually when there's an ending of a show, there's a big lead up to it, and we can all kind of grieve together. There's a collective sort of process for that. This is just an abrupt end. There's been really no acknowledgement. Smallsy was just kind of shipped in the next day, and he's doing a great job, you know, props to Smallsy, but it's, you know, just shipped in there. What's happening next week? We don't know. I would like to hear from the station. What are you doing? Yes, we know that there's still legal stuff going on, but they have lawyers too, and they know how to word these things. So, you know, like, get your money's worth from them and work out a way to talk to us about it. And obviously what's going to happen next with K&J. I know that Jackie has that trip to India coming up. She mentioned that on her Besties podcast, which she stood down from. I've gut feeling that's probably going to be her for the next couple of months. Be interested to see what Kyle does. I don't know. I feel like he's just that Howard Stern-esque personality. There's so many similarities between him and Howard. I don't know. Will he start his own sort of media company, do his own stuff? You know, like one Carl Stefanovic. I don't know. But though I think he has those options, and I think he's still and you mentioned this, he's ambitious, and I think he still obviously loves radio. So I'd be keen to see where he lands. But that's the next part.
Yep. Well, all I can say is please rest this weekend. Do whatever you can to relax and enjoy the weekend. And hopefully you're not triggered by a media release at 6 p.m. on Sunday, which forces you back into work.
You've done it. Now you've jinxed it. You do know that's
sorry.
You've done it now. Thanks, Wade. You've done it now.
Thanks, Tash. Great to see you.
See ya.
Natasha Lee there, the media editor of MediaWeek. So what will next week hold? Well, none of us know. That's the most important thing. I think everyone can kind of speculate on next steps. But the reality is we don't know what's going to happen next in this story, and we wait and see. However, there is a world outside of Kyle and Jackie O. Would you believe that? There is actually other things going on in radio, in Australia, in New Zealand, in the UK, in Europe, in the US, and we're going to be covering all those as well. So next week on the pod, I promise to bring you some variety of episodes. Yes, we're going to be talking to some Kyle and Jackie O listeners about how they feel. I think that'll be really interesting to get some absolute verbatims from what would effectively be a focus group on a podcast for the first time. But also, let's take a look a little bit wider off our shores and find some things that are happening in the US and particularly in the UK, and I'll have some special guests to do that with. So, dear listener, thank you for joining me across this week. And if you're new to the pod, thank you too. You can become a P1. Go to thequarterhour.com, sign up, become a P1, and you get access to things like our live conversations in WhatsApp, which we're having on the daily at the moment. Also, I'll let you know that the Australian Audio Awards entries close today. If you're listening to this after the 6th of March, then entries have closed, but 6th of March, entries closed today. Get them in. Very proud to be one of the sponsors of Australian Audio Awards, and I'll tell you more about that very soon. And Data, who is a sponsor of our podcast now, is also a sponsor of the Australian Audio Awards. Data are an amazing company. audata.io is the website address. Check them out and find out how they can help you communicate, monetize your audience today. Dear listener, that's been the Quarter Hour.